Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 6:20 a.m. East Coast time, Friday, September 13th. Hopefully you all had a great week. I'm excited for it. The weekend's coming up, the football slate, everything looking good. Cousins coming today, flying in, so it should be a good weekend. Excited if you were here. Welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, and MLB streets. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, similar to last week with the running backs. But this week, I'm going to be ranking my wide receivers. I'm going to be ranking them 1 through 10. We're going to be using Drafters. Drafters, just their drafting board right here. They're actually doing right now a free roll for a DeAndre Hopkins jersey for their wide receiver rank them. It's very simple. It's very similar to, in a way, similar to the captain mode on Draftkings, MVP mode on FanDuel. First place gets 10x, or first highest scorer, whoever you rank here, gets 10x the points. Whoever ranks second gets 9x all the way down, but there's no salary. So it's very interesting because you're not fixed, or at least in your head, you're not fixed into this mindset that you have to be going somewhere with your salary. You can really put whoever your projections say, or whoever you think you can put in those spots to get the greatest amount of points. It's very interesting. I won one back in the day in golf, a smaller one, but yeah, they're pretty cool. And this is free, totally free. Down below, you can get into it. There's a link, DeAndre Hopkins signed autographed jersey to whoever wins it. And you can see right here, there's only like 300 people in it right now. So that's pretty good. Not a lot of people, not a lot of competition, but we're going to use it as like my rankings board for today. This is going to be taking into account where I am going on this drafter site, and also where I'm going and where my interests lie for the most part over on DraftKings. So we'll go over here. I'll be revealing these one by one. This is my board that we've been using, right? My wide receiver interest board. It's filtered by DraftKings salary right now, so keep that in mind. Filtered by DraftKings salary, and we might as well just start it right off, right? Before we get into it, if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button. Appreciate you all so much. We are about to hit 8,300 subscribers. Probably by the time you watch this, we will be at 8,300 subscribers. So thank you all so much. I'm projecting probably, honestly, within 2 weeks to hit 10,000, which is absolutely fantastic. I thought maybe by the end of the year or the end of the football year we hit 10,000, but your support it does not go unnoticed, honestly. Thank you to all the patrons. Thank you to all the YouTube subscribers. Appreciate that a lot, and I think that you should be getting into this drafters contest, because who doesn't want a free either $1,000 prize pool? They have one for quarterbacks or wide receivers, which is just a bit more fun for me, right? More fantasy points, or at least they get them in more entertaining ways. You can get a DeAndre Hopkins jersey, who I think is the best wide receiver in the league. And not only is it his jersey, but it's signed. So let's go here. Let's go to my ranks. We'll reveal number one, the man, the myth, the man of the hour, I guess you can say over there, DeAndre Hopkins himself. So in my opinion, if you're going to be doing this, DeAndre Hopkins should be your number one wide receiver. If you're going to be doing it. And I think you're getting different. I think just by putting DeAndre Hopkins first, and this is the thing, you have to be getting different just overall. Like, you have to get different on this drafters. If you have to get different in DraftKings even, he's going to come in lower owned than a lot of guys this week on DraftKings. But for like drafters and doing this type of format, I think he's going to be lower owned in the one spot. Partially because their ownership projections or their point projections have him as like the 4th or 5th highest. But people just think this matchup against Jalen Ramsey is like cancer for him. It's not. It's the opposite. It's cancer for Jalen Ramsey. He hasn't scored less than 14 fantasy points in the last 2.5 years against Jalen Ramsey's shadow treatment. Last year, he went 12 for like 127, 12 catches for 127 yards. That's a ceiling game. In DraftKings, and then he went the matchup before that last year, he had like 8 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown, scored a touchdown in each of the matchups in 2017. Like, he is eating Jalen Ramsey, but people still think, because they're anchored onto the fact that Jacksonville was really good 2 years ago, that their defense is that great. Last year, it dropped from number 1 overall to number 6. It's going to drop even more due to players leaving, injuries. Telvin Smith, probably their best overall linebacker, is now gone. So yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, for me, he grades out as the highest projected wide receiver in my projections. I'm putting him at the top of this list right here. So let's get to number 2. And I'll give you 10. And then these R's down here, which I can hit on, these R's are just reserved. So if like somebody gets ruled out and you don't put them out, like if DeAndre Hopkins was to get ruled out, all these players would get bumped up and your R would move into your 10 spot. So it's just like you have security. Number 2 for me is Keenan Allen. Believe it or not, it's Keenan Allen, who is a guy right now who's their number 2 projected, which I agree with being number 2 wide receiver. And this is the thing, Mike Williams doesn't seem like he's suiting up, which really honestly doesn't impact Keenan Allen as much as Hunter Henry being out. This offensive line for the Chargers is terrible. Like, they won last week by throwing short to Austin Eckler, him doing stuff after the catch, throwing short to Keenan Allen, him doing stuff after the catch, and throwing 6 passes for 60 yards to Hunter Henry, and really him not doing much after the catch, but he was injured now that we know that, the tibia fracture, whatever it was, tibia fracture. So yeah, Keenan Allen is going to see even more work now with no Hunter Henry taking some of those short intermediate passes over the middle of the field and on out routes. And then Mike Williams on the outside, they weren't throwing to him anyways because that offensive line just can't protect Rivers long enough. So Keenan Allen, already an elite receiver, took over a lot more of the slot responsibilities because of the fact that you had Tyrell Williams, who is now getting hype, right, in Oakland with no AB as the number one receiver. He left, so Keenan Allen saw even more of the usage in the slot. He's already an elite wide receiver, already the favorite weapon of Phillip Rivers, and now you're putting him in the best spot for a wide receiver to be in, which is the slot. So Keenan Allen's my second in terms of where I would rank him this week. Let's see who I would put number 3. And I'll blow this up. So, without further ado, number 3, step on down, Mr. Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas I like a lot this week. So you can see I still have Julio on the board, and I'm doing that for a reason. Not only does he not grade out as well for me personally, these guys just grade out better. And also you have to keep in mind, you have to get a little bit different. If he's number 1 on their board here over here on Drafters and you're trying to win this jersey, there's a great chance a lot of people are just going to put him in because he's the only one who's projecting out for 20 points. Whereas for me, all 3 of these guys are projecting out for 20 points. So Michael Thomas in a matchup against the Rams. Look, Michael Thomas in Draftkings is coming in low owned. Michael Thomas just across the industry coming in low owned and not as much hype because Darren Waller's getting a lot of hype. Travis Kelce getting hype, deservedly so for both of those guys. Tyrell Williams is getting a lot of hype. In my opinion, it's okay, but not the greatest of hype. So lots of other guys. You have Juju in a fantastic spot. You have DeAndre Hopkins, like we talked about. Keenan Allen's getting hype. All these other guys are getting hyped up, and Michael Thomas is not getting as much hype for a guy who's playing in the best overall game total, 54.5, and just had 13 targets and had a fantastic game last week, and by all accounts looked as good as he did last year, just didn't get into the end zone. So I have really no concerns about Michael Thomas here. Honestly, I would not be shocked, and I would not hate you if you put Michael Thomas number 1 on your rankings. He comes in for me at number 3 in sort of a hammer game at 425. I guess on this drafters slate, though, the hammer game would be the night slate because they're doing it all the way until Monday night, I believe. My 4th interest. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Any guesses? Any guesses? Anybody? No? 4th interest, Julio Jones. There he is. He finally comes off the board. Julio Jones. The matchup's really good against Philadelphia. And look, he's matchup proof, right? Last week, Xavier Rhodes on him. He didn't score the touchdown against Rhodes, but he got in the end zone. Kind of an underwhelming day. The touchdown saved his overall fantasy output. But now you get Julio, who's dealing with sort of this foot problem, right, all year long. It's just really a pain management type of thing. Same thing for Amari Cooper. I have nothing negative to say about Julio Jones. We know how good this man is. We know how matchup proof he is. When it just comes down to it, I like the volume, right? The overall pure volume of DeAndre Hopkins, 43% of the target share last week. The overall pure volume of Keenan Allen, seeing 10% or 10 targets overall and going to be getting more. Michael Thomas seeing 13 targets last week. Like Julio, yeah, he saw a good amount of targets, but you're still fighting out there with a Calvin Ridley. Austin Hooper saw a ton of work. They didn't even get Devonta Freeman going last week. Ito Smith seeing a lot of touches on the ground. So overall volume, I like the target shares better for the receivers I put ahead of him. And again, it's really, really close. And also you have to get a little bit different. I think Julio is going to be in the number 1 or 2 spot here more so than not. And really overall more so just because of where he's ranked. Number 5. My guy, Davante Adams. So I'm a Packer fan. This is not me being biased. This is another situation very similar for me to DeAndre Hopkins this week, where DeAndre Hopkins is coming in at, he's getting lower owned than just all the ownership projections I'm seeing. Davante Adams is even lower. Like, Hopkins has a tougher matchup for sure against Ramsey. Like, people think Xavier Rhodes is still a good cornerback. Again, you're anchored on 2 to 3 years ago when he had good seasons. Last year he was terrible. Like, absolutely terrible. Davante Adams eats Xavier Rhodes' lunch every single time he's played him. The last 2 years, so last 4 matchups, he's had a touchdown in every single matchup. He averages 16.75 fantasy points against Xavier Rhodes over the last 2 years, last 4 matchups. Again, a touchdown every single time. And Davante Adams is only getting better, entering his peak years right now as Xavier Rhodes is entering his downfall years, right? If not last year was the beginning of that. I have no reason to believe why Davante Adams, who was targeted 8 times last week, whose ownership is coming in low because, 1, he's expensive on DraftKings. 2, overall, he had a bad week 1. The whole offense did. That was a very bad game overall. As a Packer fan, I'd take the win, but it was just a boring game to watch. Adams is a guy who eats Xavier Rhodes' lunch, and I want him right now as my number 5. If you tell me that I just get Adams' average here, like 16.5 fantasy points as my 5th ranked guy, I take that. I'm very fine with that overall. So, yeah, I like Davante Adams there as my 5th ranked guy. Number 6, and I guess we'll go through the first 8 of these. No reason to give you all of my picks, right? I got to try and win myself here. Number 6 is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju, fantastic spot. This is like the ideal betting situation if you are a sports bettor, which if you're betting right now, you're losing. So stop betting. Like if you're betting Sunday morning, Saturday, Friday, you're losing. So just stop. The only way to win at sports betting is to get the opening line and beat the closing line. You already don't get the opening line. You're trying to beat the closing line before even getting the opening line. It's never going to happen. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that just means that you should probably stop betting because you've already probably lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in sports betting. Look, I get it. It's fun. Just play free game modes on like Drafters or play free game modes on DraftKings because you're losing all your money sports betting. It's a zero-sum game, in my opinion, if you're not getting the opening line. And even those guys have a hard time pushing profit after the rate comes into play. So, anyways, with that said, this is a perfect spot for sports betting because the Steelers just got obliterated week 1 by the Patriots. Now they're coming home against a secondary that just got lit up by Cincinnati and is now going to be on the road. That does not bode well for a secondary and a team traveling. That bodes very well for Big Ben and this offense coming home. I think that Dante Moncrief, who had a terrible game, 3 catches, 7 yards on 10 targets, had a couple of drops, like 3 drops to 4 drops in that game. I think he looked really bad. He should bounce back. But Juju, a guy who's dealing with an injury, they said he's going to be a full go. He looks fine. Even in a game where Bill Belichick was clearly trying to take him away, he still posted a pretty good stat line. So was targeted the most. He's going to be the new number 1 receiver pretty clearly in this offense. Big Ben, I don't think he's just completely broken. I think week 1 was just a bad week, and a bounce back spot is on the horizon in a very favorable matchup where Andy Dalton just went for over 400 yards. And John Ross toasted him. Yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster, again, this is a guy who, it's so close with these top 6 wide receivers for me, and really top 7 even, that if you put Juju number 1 here, I wouldn't hate you. Like, me seeing Juju go for 130 and a touchdown, or me seeing Juju go for 102 touchdowns, is not out of the question. It's not out of the question for any of these guys, but Juju is like one of those guys who is going to, came out of college with not a lot of speed, right? But he's shown speed in the NFL on big plays, and he's just going to get peppered with targets. Like 12 targets seems like a realistic median projection for Juju if Big Ben's going to throw like 40 times in this game. So I like Juju in the number 6 hole right there. Number 7, Odell Beckham Jr. And now my things are going to start to get a little bit weirder after this. These are like the obvious plays, right? Or at least to an extent. These are sort of the obvious plays. Let me actually see, is Odell on this? Is this just till Sunday? This is just Sunday slate. So there you go. Already a mishap on my part. So we're going to take Odell out of there. We're going to bump him. And here we go. This is perfect. We'll put, ready? Watch the magic happen. Well, actually, we don't put the reserve in there. We'll put whoever's in the number 7 spot. We'll go in for Odell. And further ado, Cooper Kupp. Bam. And I'm fine putting Cooper Kupp in my 7 spot. So people are going to say, "Oh my God, Cooper Kupp, that's way too high of a rank for the Kupp man himself." I would say you're crazy. I made a video solely just hyping up Cooper Kupp this week because he's in a fantastic spot. Look, he came back. He's Jared Goff's favorite target. He was when he was healthy last year. He's an absolute monster in the slot. Top 10 in separation last year. Top 10 week 1 in separation. Had 10 targets, caught 7 of them. Should have had a bigger day if Jared Goff was more accurate in leading him on some of those receptions. But caught 7 of the 10 targets. Really good in separation. Now he has 20-plus pounds on P.J. Williams in the slot this week. It's a fantastic spot. He already is good at getting separation. Now that weight advantage is only going to help him in the highest total game on the slate. Ran 90% of the routes. And again, it's just a dream spot for a guy like Cooper Kupp, in my opinion. This is a guy who was just blasting it every single week last year. Just fantastic, getting loads of targets. 8 targets was like a median for him. And in a game with this type of environment, especially now that, although I don't think Todd Gurley is done like other people do, especially now that Todd Gurley is being somewhat limited on his snaps, right? 70% of snaps last week instead of like a normal 85%. They're going to rely on the passing game even more. Jared Goff loves targeting the slot. Cooper Kupp is in the slot, which is by far the best spot. And again, like overall, I have Cooper Kupp ranked very high in terms of my own projections. But you have to get someone different on these slates. And that's where I'm going to be taking my stance at getting somewhat different. All right. I think this is probably still going to be Odell. Oh, no. There's your Cooper Kupp shares. So now, without further ado, we'll give the number 8 guy, John Brown. So now I'm getting different, right? I'm getting clearly different. Like Sammy Watkins, Amari Cooper, these guys are still on the board. I have downsides with all of them, in my opinion. Julian Edelman, downsides is not as high as the other ones. Like good matchup against Miami, but AB is there. I don't think that impacts him too much. Adam Thielen, downsides are that they're not going to throw as much, and he's not going to be in the slot as much. But if they move him into the slot against Tramon Williams, that's obviously a fantastic spot. AB is going to hurt Josh Gordon. T.Y. Hilton, I think you should sell high on him in a very tough matchup. Well, let's get to John Brown, because I want to get a little bit different, right? So John Brown for Buffalo, his quarterback, who's in a fantastic spot by all accounts, in my opinion, this week in Josh Allen. Look, dead last in pass rush last week was the Giants, and then second worst in overall pass coverage. What does that mean? That means it's a perfect concoction and recipe for Josh Allen to just go off, right? This is a guy who likes to throw deep, likes to scramble. Now you're giving him time to throw deep. One, let John Brown get down the field, who had a very good game, 123 and a touchdown last week. On 10 targets, saw the biggest target share on that team, as expected in a way. These guys just gel so well together. So you're going to give Josh Allen time, right? Let him scramble, get points there maybe for the QB rank him. The free roll is $1,000 for that. You should check that out. And then you're also going to be getting points, or you're also going to be getting a favorable spot because you're letting him get time to throw deep, and now you're not actually going to cover anything deep because second worst in overall pass coverage last week, second worst overall defense after 1 week, according to Pro Football Focus, which I trust very well. So yeah, John Brown, who had a big game last week, there's nobody who's going to guard him. You think Janoris Jenkins, the only somewhat talent on that Giants defense is going to stop John Brown? No, he's not. Top cornerbacks can't stop John Brown, and I don't even think Janoris Jenkins is in the top 1 or 2 tiers of quarterbacks in this league anymore. He's not very good. He was good 3, 4, or 5 years ago, maybe 2, I would say as well, but not now. So John Brown is my number 8 guy. So that's where I'm at right now in terms of my top 8 rankings. I have some interesting plays down here. I'll talk about one of them. Right now he's a reserve for me, so I'll put him into the reserve spot because I think that I want to talk about this guy a little bit more after seeing some of his ownership. Christian Kirk is going to be my final reserve, I guess you can say, or maybe we'll just put him in the first reserve. Christian Kirk, look, the matchup against Baltimore seems terrifying, but lots of people are being kind of just not paying attention to what's happening with the defense. And it makes sense, right? The defense for Baltimore, you don't get like individual points, most leagues, definitely not in DraftKings, so you don't pay attention to the injuries there. Marlon Humphreys is dealing with an injury. Tavon Young is out with a neck injury. He's a cornerback. Jimmy Smith, their rookie cornerback sensation from a couple of years ago, he's out. They lost him in Miami, so they lost 2 cornerbacks week 1, and now Marlon Humphreys is dealing with an injury as well. So potentially going to be down 2. At the very best, you're going to be having a limited Marlon Humphreys. So your defense is overall shot right now. Now, I know the offense and right now the game total for Arizona is terrible because the Ravens still have a good run D, the Ravens still have a good pass rush, but their secondary is torn apart. And last week, Kyler Murray, although he threw it a lot because they played pace up, they're still going to play pace up here. And what that's going to do for you is that's going to give you the opportunity to see a lot more passes to the slot, which we saw 13 targets to Larry Fitzgerald. We saw 12 to Kirk, and Kirk should have had a huge day, like a very big day last week, but Murray missed him 1 to 2 times. It would have been at least like a 100-yard game and a touchdown if he hits him on one of those. So Kirk, again, in a spot where it doesn't seem as favorable, but again, they're going to be down to like their 4th and 5th and potentially 6th string cornerbacks, and it's not going talked about enough. Like, it's not getting talked about enough how injured this Baltimore Ravens secondary actually is for week 2. Christian Kirk, it was the guy who just missed. He's very low owned for DraftKings. I like him, and I like him in this sort of format as well because what you're trying to do here is just, especially when you're in this bottom range here of just getting 10 extra 1 points and 9. And I would probably play Kirk higher so you can actually take advantage of his boom or bust potential. If he doesn't do well, oh well, maybe you probably weren't going to win anyways. But if he does well, nobody's going to have him. So like doing something like putting Christian Kirk, I don't know, putting like these guys who you can feel good about their points, like Cooper Kupp in the 10x spot or 9x, you feel good about him getting you, I don't know, like 12 to 15 points. But the guys who might be boom or busty, John Brown's a little bit more boom now with this offense in the matchup. But right here, Christian Kirk, a very boom or busty type player. Why don't you move him up a little bit so you can take advantage of that multiplier and nobody's going to own him? I think it's a little bit risky, sure. Like, I know it seems crazy, but if you want to win a signed jersey against right now 350 other people, maybe getting a little bit risky makes sense. If it's only 350 people, I don't think you have to get too risky. So keeping Christian Kirk down here as a reserve or a 10x guy does make some sense to me. So that's where I'm at right now. You can fill in the rest if you want. Literally, it's like 2 more spots for you to fill in. But this is for DeAndre Hopkins jersey. This is via drafters.com. You can check it out. It's pretty fun. They also have a free roll for their quarterbacks, $1,000. Let's check out the lobby real quick. Yes, leave this page. So the lobby last week, there was like a $5.50 free roll up. Here we have like an $11 contest for the quarterback rankum. Let's check that out. But last week, and you can see 480 to first, 168 to second. Last week, there was a ton of overlay. So this contest right here has 120 people. And right now, they just opened this. I think they opened this. What time is it right now? It's 6:30. I'm pretty sure they just opened this at 6 a.m. this morning for me to get in here and start working around it. So we had last week overlay in the 550, which isn't out yet. But overlay meaning that there's not enough money to be putting or there's not enough people filling it, so they're still going to give out the same exact money, right? They're still going to be giving out the exact same money as they were if the entire contest filled. So you're getting less competition for the same money, which means there's more equity in that contest. So overlay is happening on these sites. It's a different format. You don't have to worry about pros too much. I would check out drafters.com. Pretty cool site. I actually like the format a lot. So I would check that out if you are interested. That is my rankings. This is my drafters board. And there's a process that goes into my rankings. I mean, it's very projection based overall. And I have my projections over on Patreon if you're interested. But it's also for this type of format when you have to beat other people in a field. It's using your projections and leveraging them in a way that guys who are projected lower, you put a little bit higher because you know somebody's not going to have that guy in that spot. So you can try and take advantage of some of the uncertainty. So that's where I'm at right now. Those are my top 8 wide receivers for a drafters rankum style format. Those are guys that I have a lot of interest in also in my player pools for this weekend in DraftKings format. So appreciate it. You can check out all my other content, exclusive content over on Patreon. If you are interested in that DeAndre Hopkins free roll over on Drafters, there will be a link down below in the description. You can check that out as well. Follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, everybody. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right?
And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a Patreon, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a Patreon. It will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well. See ya.